I'm going to walk you through a application that I made using all Ruby on Rails technology, including the views. It's called Gigster. I'm a working musician, and oftentimes I'll be touring on the road. I'll be in another city, say I'll be in Atlanta or I'll be in New York, and I need to find a substitute musician to play, or some gear breaks down, and I need to find someone in that city that plays a particular instrument. So I developed this application called Gigster. That's like a social media network for musicians where you can easily query people for um, the instruments they play and the city they live in, and also book them for available dates. So we're going to log in here. So once you sign in, you hit your little profile page that has information about yourself, your email address, and all of the instruments that you play. You also have a list of your upcoming gigs. So you can have two different relationships with the gig. You can be the leader of the gig, where you are looking for musicians to hire to add them to the gig, or you can be hired as a side person for a gig. So we have two different lists here to display those relationships. You can also edit your profile, so you can edit everything that you have on this page: your first name, last name, your age. You can also add instruments. So we say Daniel also sings while he plays the drums. That will help us find Daniel in search queries a little bit later, which I'll show you. So we'll update that user's profile, and you see drum set and vocals appear. Okay, so next, let's check it out. Let's click the city page here, and you can check out all the musicians in your city that are available. So if we click on New York, there's a list of all the instruments that are available, and we can type in bass, and it'll give us all the bass players that are in that city. And then we can click on that bass player, and we can also see their profile, all the instruments that they play, all their upcoming gigs, as a leader and as a side person. We can also just have a gigs index where we can search gigs by date, which this is helpful because if we are free, say, on this date, December 6, 2017, we can just click on here. We can check out the musicians on the gig. And if we want, we can also hit their email address, and a little email pops up that can query for a gig that day, which is really nice. Okay. Discard that. All right. Moving on, you can create a new gig. So we'll call this one Blues Night. We'll say we're playing at the Yellow Record. And we'll give a date of January 13th, 2018. We'll say a time of 10 in New York, and create the gig. So now we go to this gig show page where, as a gig leader, we can edit the gig, or we can search for musicians to add to the gig. We have a cool search query here that automatically searches the city that the venue is in. So in this case, it's New York, and for the instruments that you want. What's another cool thing is that it also checks to see if that particular musician is booked on that day. So we're going to come back to here in just a second, but for now we're going to go to cities, and we're going to look at all of our bass players again. So we see that there's two bass players, Seth Barden and Jack Hill. So we look at Seth Barden's profile. This is just for our demonstration purposes. We can see that he has a gig on the 13th, the same day that we just made this new gig. So let's go back to our gig that we were editing on the 13th. And now let's query bassists for New York. So we'll say bass, search. And we see that only Jack Hill comes up because our query not only searches for the musician based on availability or based on the city that he or she lives in, but also based on the availability. So since Seth already had a gig that was booked on that date, he doesn't even appear in our search. So that's nice because it doesn't even give us people who are unavailable for that date. You can select Jack, you can update Jack to the gig, and now Jack is on the gig. And you can do that with like all different instruments. So we can search for vocalist. Oh, there's no one available on that day, which is too bad. What about trumpet? We want a trumpet player on that day. Okay, so we have two different options, Sean Smith or Lucy Barden. So let's hire Sean Smith. And now Sean is on the gig. So yeah, that's the application. It helps musicians connect with other musicians in different cities based on their instrument and availability. That's Gigster.